Right, everything is on the table. That's the message from the government on AM yesterday. Have a look at Jacinda Ardern when I asked her, are you open to taking assets off gangs if you find them with guns? You're saying you are very open to changing the law to make that a reality.
As I've said, we've been open with the police to say, if you've identified things that will make a difference, bring those proposals to us so that we can work them through.
But is it too little too late? Let's go to Opposition Leader Christopher Luxon this morning. Morena, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you today?
Good, thank you. What's the root of the problem here, do you think? You know, in some ways it seems the government playing catch-up here. We had the ACT Party with a bill doing basically what we just described that was shut down by the government 3 weeks ago. What's going on here?
Well, look, I think the reality, if you take a step back, is that we've had 23 shootings just in the last 2 weeks, and people are feeling incredibly unsafe in their homes and in their communities. The second reality is that frontline police actually want to get on and crack down on gangs, but they don't have the tools to do so. And so the real root cause of the problem, and I think if I was Prime Minister, looking at the performance of each of the cabinet ministers and saying who's doing well, who's not, the reality is Poto Williams is struggling and she needs to be now removed by the Prime Minister and replaced with somebody else. I'm sure she's a good person, but she's been struggling in this job for some time, not getting the tools actually to the frontline police officers that we need her to do.
OK, so you think the problem is actually at the top. It's with the police minister and you want her to be moved on to something else?
Yeah, I just think, if I was Prime Minister looking at the performance of my cabinet ministers, I can see that Poto Williams is really struggling in police. She isn't providing the leadership, she's not being able to get the tools, and the frontline police don't feel backed up. And so I'm sure she's, as I said, it's not personal. I'm sure she's a good person. She can probably add some value to some other portfolios, but we need a replacement and a new police minister.
The problem with that is the police say they've got the tools that they want and they're only in the process now of coming up with some advice about new tools that might help them.
Yeah, look, I think there are several tools that are missing here. The most important one in my mind is what we call firearm prohibition orders. What that means is that police have warrantless search powers to go after illegal guns, whether they be in gang members' cars or whether they be in gang pads. That bill, we've had 2 goes at that with members' bills under Chris Bishop and under Simeon Brown. The government's rejected it twice. It's actually now before a select committee. And I would just say to the Prime Minister, look, we want to work with you on that. Why don't we haul it out of select committee, take it to Parliament next week and get on and actually get it passed under urgency. We pass a lot of other legislation under urgency. This is genuinely urgent, and we could actually beef up and give the police the frontline powers that they need to go after illegal guns. Let's work on that together. That would make a big difference.
OK, will you write to the Prime Minister and suggest that? You know, yesterday they were talking about the fact that they want to look at the assets of gang members if they find a gun in their possession. Will you write to the Prime Minister and say, hey, we are all for that, we will help you in the drafting of the legislation, whatever we can do to help? Will you do that?
Absolutely. We're absolutely keen to work with the government on that. If you think about the way we worked with the government on Ukraine, Jerry Brownlee had provided sanctions legislation, it was rejected, and then it was largely adopted a couple of weeks after the Ukraine crisis. So this is urgent. The police have the capability, they have the desire, the wish, the will to do it. We support more resources for police, but we have to give them the tools so they can be effective with it. And it should be bipartisan. Happy to work with the government on that. OK, cool. Good to know you'll write to them today. Ban gang patches. Mark Mitchell seemed to suggest yesterday you might. Would you? Yeah, well, look, as we've said, we think a dedicated gang unit, we think these firearm prohibition orders with search powers is important. And Mark and I have been talking about it for a couple of months now, what actually else could we be doing? And we're interested in all those ideas that we see internationally where people have got the same problem and have had some success and have got good evidence for cracking down on gangs. We're up for thinking about everything else.
You're just floating ideas, you're just thinking, but you're not actually decided anything?
No, we're going to have actually some policy announcement coming out very shortly, so watch this space.
When's that?
I'm not telling you when, but it's coming very, very soon. It's a secret.
All right. All right, so we've got rid of...
But it is important, Ryan. It's important that we actually look at everything, that's on the... We actually genuinely have to say what would make the big difference to start cracking down. I watched the 6 o'clock news last night. There was a neighbour caught up in that shooting, and she was talking about the safety of her children and actually wanting to move. That is not the New Zealand that we want to see emerge. And so we've got to take some drastic action now.
Do you think Labor's to blame for all these tensions?
Well, look, I just think they've sent the wrong message. And again, what's happening at the moment is they're just making it up on the fly, under pressure from the media, under pressure from the opposition. We've been talking about crime for some time. Violent crime's up 21%, gang membership's up 40%, all under the time of this government. And so you've got to look at the data, you've got to look at those facts and those realities, face up to it, and then put a plan in place to deal with them and get them back under control. So, for me, it's just been the settings from the top haven't been right. And as I said, it's not something I do lightly. I haven't ever called for, a replacement minister before in my time in politics. It's not something we should do easily because ministers will make mistakes. But this isn't a mistake. This is just a lack of leadership and I think someone who's really struggling in the job.
All right, National Party leader Christopher Luxon, thanks so much for your time.